Hello and welcome back to the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast with me, your host Ryan, the founder of Rocket SaaS. We are back in the studio for the first time this year with Jamie. Welcome back.
Yeah, 2026, first one of the year.
Let's go. For anyone watching on YouTube, I promise I haven't been smoking weed all day. My eyes are completely bloodshot. I've got eyes like Snoop Dogg. I think my dog's been sleeping on my pillow or something. I don't know.
Been a tough week.
Yeah, maybe I've been working too hard. Yeah. But yeah, it's not the Joe Rogan podcast where all the guests start smoking weed all the time. This is the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast. And we are talking today about the founder-led network. We work with a lot of SaaS companies. We hear from a lot of SaaS companies, particularly that sort of kind of early startup stage, where they say that the business has grown to a certain level. I've met plenty of businesses that have grown to a decent level, like $1 million in ARR, and they've done it through the founder or co-founder's network. And eventually you obviously get to a point where that network runs dry and the business starts to plateau, or worse, it declines. So we hear it all a lot. We hear it all the time. So this episode is about what do you do when that happens? How do you grow beyond the founder-led network? How do you even squeeze more juice out of the founder-led network? Because there is always more juice to be squeezed. And if you have scaled a business well, using the founder-led network, one of my favorite sayings in marketing is understand what you've done well and do more of it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So Jamie, do you want to kind of set the scene and give any more context around kind of what we're hearing, what we're seeing with SaaS companies and the founder network?
Yeah, definitely. So I think this is a really common challenge that we hear from buyers when they come to us is they've grown primarily through the network and they've reached a point where it can't scale anymore. And I think what happens is they get to a point where they kind of see it as a closed off opportunity. And I suppose that's kind of what we want to get into a little bit today is that actually your founder's network doesn't necessarily, it might dry up to a point, but there's ways to open it back up. But you've just got to reframe how you think about that network and what you're going to use that network for. So I think that's probably a good place to start.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember back when I started my kind of entrepreneurial journey about 15 years ago, and I became a freelance website designer for the first time. And the first thing I did was open up my network. I spoke to my boss, and I spoke to my boss's boss and my previous boss, because basically the company that I left kind of disbanded. So we were all just out of work. So I started to become a freelancer. So I just tapped up all the people I used to work with that all got made redundant at the same time. I was like, hey, do you need a website? Because a few people are starting businesses. So that was incredible for me to kind of get the business off the ground. So yeah, it's a really powerful thing. And also for anyone that's listening that hasn't really utilized the founder-led network like they could have done, this is an amazing, low-hanging fruit opportunity, really. So let's start with identifying the people in the network. Who are the people in your founder network that you could be going after? I guess the obvious people are if you've come from a company, you've just started a SaaS business, or maybe you started a SaaS business years ago, most founders have obviously come from that industry before, or maybe they've worked for a similar SaaS business, but that's typically what happens with founders. So there's a big network there. Kind of where would you start in terms of, with any good marketing, you kind of start with a targeting list. So imagine you were putting a list together. Who would you be kind of going after in that list?
Yeah. So I think you just think about it in terms of the relationships you have closest to you, obviously where you start. And that's also just going to be about trust, same as any kind of sales and marketing effort. With people who know you and like you and trust you, they're much more likely to give you an opportunity, particularly if you're kind of coming out with a new SaaS product or something in that kind of vein. So that's where I'd start, is kind of always trying to, whether it's sourcing new opportunities from your network or trying to kind of tap more existing value out of it. Start with the immediate network, ex-colleagues and people that you work directly with in either your industry or in your old companies. A layer above that, I'd be thinking about suppliers, partners that you've worked directly with, when you're working at your old jobs, your old industry, going through them. Those people have had probably quite intimate relationships with you. If you've for example, for me as a marketer, I've worked with a lot of event planners and event professionals. And so those are people that I have worked quite closely with over 2-3 year periods. And if I ever needed to revisit that conversation, if I had something that was of value to them, that's someone I'd go and talk to. And then another layer above that would be the kind of more casual contacts, people you've met at events, people you just maybe have exchanged messages with on LinkedIn, people you're liking and sharing their posts and stuff like that. Just general kind of contacts who you might not have a personal relationship with, but you've had contact with, and so you've kind of exchanged things. there's a level of familiarity, and I still think that's still a relevant connection to tap into. So I think that just working backwards from that most trusted audience, the people you're closest to, working backwards, that's the kind of network that I'd be looking to kind of get.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so colleagues, partners, suppliers. Yeah, I like that. And hopefully you've been good at keeping your LinkedIn connections up to date all the way through your career. So really, you should just be able to go through your LinkedIn connections. And yeah, you would start with, okay, the ones that you actually know. Everyone's got a ton of LinkedIn connections of people that they don't even know who they are. But yeah, that's a gold mine there, really. As long as if you kept your LinkedIn up to date, just go through the whole thing. It could take you hours, but actually hand picking, yeah, I actually know that person on a personal level. Yeah, I remember having a conversation with that person at an event 5 years ago. Just start to put them in a list. And then I presume the next thing to do is start to message them, essentially. So LinkedIn DM is going to be the obvious one.
Yeah. And I think though, like in terms of like, I suppose come reframing this back around the podcast, like definitely think about like, because I think a lot of people will kind of reach a point where they'll think like, I've exhausted my network, but think through those layers and actually really think about, have I actually spoken to everyone who could have got value for what I'm doing, or I could actually have a conversation with? Like, I think when you actually start thinking about it at different layers and all the different contexts you have, there's always more opportunity. And so, yeah, I'd recommend like obviously reviewing that, have a think about kind of who's in there, and then start thinking about like just reaching out and having like conversations about either like more kind of real like sales conversations. You want to have a meeting and talk to me about this? I've got something of real value to you. Or I think what we're going to get onto in a minute in terms of like, if you feel like you've already kind of spoken to these contacts and you've kind of like dried up the relationships in terms of like a sales conversation, what else can you do with them? And I think that's probably what we can get into a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. And I would also say when you've kind of identified that network of the people that you know and the people that you had a relationship with, the people that you met and shook hands with in person or worked with closely, then go be a bit more brave than that. Go after the CEO. Go after the scary CEO of your old company. Even if you never met him or her before on a personal level, they may know who you are, or even if they don't, you can reach out and say, I used to work for your company. I loved working there and hope business is going really well. Just to let you know, I've now started my own thing. You know, these senior people should kind of respect that someone started their own business, and if it's in the same field that they're in, you know, that could really massively open up doors. So you know, British people aren't particularly good at like kind of being brave and outreaching to people don't have a personal connection with already. But you know, the higher up you go, the kind of org chart of your previous business or your previous business, or even your, you know, again, suppliers, the network that you had, you can go after the you know, top senior people at those companies. If you can go in, because, you know, we talk about this all the time on the podcast in terms of like doing an outreach message. It's the robotic outreach messages that just, you know, go into spam and people just ignore them and kind of roll their eyes. But if the message starts by saying, hey, first name, I used to work for your company. I really enjoyed working with Chris in accounts. You know, that opening line that would make you read it and make you go, oh, okay, this person's actually spent the time to write me a personal message. I'm going to read the rest of it. Oh, they've got an accountancy software that I'm actually interested in. You know, that's how it works. So it's a manual thing, but it's so worthwhile. It's a real kind of gold mine, your network, essentially. So if you feel that you've got growth from your network, then there's probably more to be squeezed from it. So I think what we're going to move on to next is like what to say to them and how to get the most out of it. So you can start by going straight to the bottom of the funnel in terms of saying, hey, we've just launched this software, or we've had this software for a few years. We've got some really good traction. Think it would be great for you. Have you got pain points in this area? If so, you know, I could show you a quick demo of it. So, you know, you can start there. But then you've also got another play, which is moving things slightly higher up the funnel, is because really you're trying to re-engage your relationship with these people. Like a lot of these people you haven't spoken to in years. So maybe going straight for the demo is a little bit too cold still. So you just go, particularly if you used to know them, used to be, you know, friends with them, is that you just try and strike up a friendly conversation first. You don't just go straight for the demo. How are you? And if you remember that they had a kid, you know, how are they getting on, and you know all that. Just be friendly, basically. And then you can be like, I've just started a podcast series, and I remember you were a really funny person, and I remember you were really charismatic, and you've got a lot to say about the industry. I'm looking for people like you to come on to the pod, and then you invite them onto the podcast, or you invite them to be a guest on the webinar, or you invite them to contribute to some original research white paper that you're putting together. That kind of stuff's a bit more friendly rather than just going straight for the kill of the demo. And then obviously, you are then getting them into the funnel, and if they do come on the pod or whatever, then you can start to ease them onto a demo and start to sell to them.
I've got an example actually from my own kind of people reaching out to me. Like something that kind of worked with me in the past was it's got to be kind of worded right, and you've got the right relationship, but like asking for feedback on what they're doing. So like someone coming to you and kind of asking like, I've just built this that does this really cool thing, and like kind of go into detail about what it does, like kind of looking for feedback on it. Would you like be open to like a quick chat? And then I kind of get on a meeting to go, yeah, I'll give you a quick chat. And then I get on a meeting and I find out about it. I'm like, oh, this is really cool. And all of a sudden I'm kind of bought in. They didn't really pitch me, but we had a conversation later. So that's another way to think about it. I think it's kind of reframing the offer around like you just mentioned, like it doesn't necessarily to be like, you're interested in having a meeting to talk about working with me. It could just be like giving you feedback, getting you onto a podcast, loads of different ways of kind of re-engaging that relationship. And particularly if you've already kind of started working with someone, how can you get more out of that person? Thinking about things like that, a podcast, a webinar, all of these things are ways to squeeze more value from your network.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I might be naive when I say this, but my kind of philosophy is that most people are nice. And when somebody reaches out to me that I used to work with, or I know, or I met, and we had a nice conversation with, if they DM me, I'm not going to ghost them. Like no matter what. As long as they send me a personal message and not some bot message, and they say, oh, hey Ryan, I've had it plenty of times. I've just launched a new product. Would love to have a demo. Would love you to have a demo of it. And even if it's not of interest to me, I'm going to give them feedback, and I'm going to be like, oh yeah, this is not quite for me because of X, Y, and Z. But the ones that obviously are for me, then yeah, that has been a great outreach tactic for me. So yeah, the power of the network is really, really important. I know this is not really part of the episode, but it also emphasizes the power of building a network. It emphasizes working for companies and being friendly and creating LinkedIn connections with your suppliers, your partners, your people, because it will serve you well in the long run. It's a bit like career SEO. If you invest early in being friendly with people, creating networks, creating connections, that will massively help you down the line. Like I know someone recently that got made redundant, and it's really, really hard to get jobs at the moment. But they managed to get a job pretty quickly, and they got it from their network. So I don't want to deviate too much from the topic today, but yeah, having a powerful network is so important for many, many reasons.
And that's why you need to squeeze it for all it's worth.
And you can squeeze it for all it's worth. And like I said at the start of the podcast, if you have scaled the business mainly from the network, do more of that.
Yeah.
You've hammered the bottom of the funnel. You've asked everybody in your network to do a demo. Now start asking all of the people that didn't sign up, which will be the majority of people. Now start inviting all of them onto the podcast, or all of them onto being a webinar guest with you. That can be really, really important. And also, I always remember the episode number. I think it was episode number 50 of the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast. I gave my number one career piece of advice, which is to find somebody in your network that's a little bit scary, like way above you in the career ladder or the org chart, the CEO of your ex company, for example, and invite them to lunch and just say, hey, I've launched this product. You've done amazing in your career. I'd love to just take you for lunch and just get your opinion on it and get your advice. And doing things like that can just massively create opportunity for you. I did it twice in my career. You can learn about it in episode 50. And they were two of the biggest stepping stones in my career in terms of just taking someone for lunch. Well, it was actually a load of beers. It wasn't lunch, but take them for beers or lunch, even better. And just get them talking. So, I've launched this product a year ago. We've got pretty good traction. But have you got any advice? And if you take a bunch of people for lunch or a load of beers, don't be surprised when one of them just opens up this massive door for you, whether they become your biggest partner or they go, you know what, I know a big company that could really benefit from you. Let me introduce you to Chris. Those sorts of things can really happen. So, don't just do the DMs. If there's someone in your network that that's a really kind of influencer-y type figure or a really impressive person, go further than that, offer to take them to the pub, offer to take them for lunch, and just kind of see what happens. But the network is so powerful.
And it's like psychology as well, like in terms of like, if you're able to do something for someone without an expectation of something happening on the other side, like you're doing it because you think it's the right thing to do in terms of like it's going to open up opportunities, but you do it without the expectation, like reciprocity is a thing. Like people are more likely to do stuff for you if you've done stuff for them. It's like a real human like psychology thing in marketing that works. So yeah, I definitely recommend like definitely invest that, and like that's a really good tip with in terms of like going to someone who's higher up and doing that. There's no harm in kind of offering that and see what happens.
Yeah, you got to be brave, but what's the worst that can happen? What's is that Dr. Pepper line? What is the worst that can happen? They ghost you. Or they say, no, I don't want to go for lunch with you. I don't remember you. Yeah, so what? You keep doing that to 10 people, someone's going to go for lunch with you, and it could be great. So, and then the other thing, if you really have extinguished the network and the business really is plateauing and you really don't think you can get any more out of your network, let's talk about what you can do. I mean, obviously, what we talk about in the podcast all the time is all the other things about, creating ICP and doing LinkedIn ads and all that. So I don't want to get into that. Let's keep it related to the network. Because if you have scaled the business because of your network, that means that you've got something about you. That means that people like you. Probably means that you're charismatic. It means that you're, perhaps you're an expert in the industry. You're a thought leader. That's probably what it's telling me. If you're saying that you've had a lot of growth from your network, so how do you leverage that even further? What do you reckon?
So I think the big thing here is like, and this is something we talk to founders about a lot, like when they reach this point, building a brand, building a founder brand, starting to share your insights, your view on things, your point of view, helping your buyers solve problems, doing that publicly, that's the next step. And then trying to get that as far and wide as possible. Like obviously when we work with founders, we kind of take that content, we distribute with ads, so we get it to the right people week on week. But that's the key. First thing and foremost is like working out, okay, what do my buyers care about? Like, what's my point of view on like the market that I play in, the way that that's going? Start sharing those insights, start talking about kind of your stories with customers, all the things that you'd want your buyers to know, like those stories, your point of view, solving their problems for them before they discover your product. Like all of these things are going to build a brand around you, and that's how you expand the network and take it to the next level.
Yes, well, I am a massive flag waver of that. So about, I don't know how long ago it was now, probably about 3 years ago, I think, I started a sub-brand called SaaS Marketing Weekly. It started off as a newsletter. So the company was called Rocket SaaS. I can't remember why I decided to do it. It was so long ago now, but I decided to create a sub-brand called SaaS Marketing Weekly, and it was only a newsletter. And the banner at the top of the newsletter, when you opened it up, was SaaS Marketing Weekly by Ryan James with a picture of me on it. And then in tiny little text, it was like founder of Rocket SaaS. But it was coming from me as a person, as a personal brand thing. And I still do. I write this weekly newsletter that goes out every single Thursday. And it was written from the first person. It was written by me. So I wouldn't say we think this. It would be I think this. This is my personal opinion on these things. And when you do it in that way and you attach a personal brand to it, it just gets a hell of a lot more engagement than a company account. People are very skeptical about following like company newsletters because they think they're going to get sold to. They think they're going to get boring industry news, but
especially B2B,
especially in B2B, and especially in software. So when you put your face to it and your personal brand to it, that can get so much more engagement. So that's where the SaaS Marketing Weekly started. And then after about maybe 18 months or so, I decided to turn it into a podcast. It's not sort of, well, it has got my face all over it. I suppose it's SaaS Marketing Weekly by Ryan James, and because it used to just be me on my own. I should probably get your photo on there as well, shouldn't I? But anyway,
Jay show.
I'll keep it. But anyway, again, the fact that it is tied to a personal brand, it has got my photo on the cover of the podcast, promotions and marketing. It just makes it much more approachable, much more. If it was just the Rocket SaaS logo, people would be like, oh yeah, it's a company podcast. That could be a bit boring. Is this just a funnel to sell to me? So yeah, I think what we're getting at is if you have had success from your personal brand, or success from your network, I should say, then the next logical step is to go into your personal brand and start really elevating that personal brand. In my personal experience, I would say start by writing a weekly newsletter, because therefore you don't have the kind of commitment of having to do a podcast and having to be on video and have to, know how to present, which can take a little while to kind of get good at that. Most people can easily put a newsletter together quite easily, and then you can start to expand it out. Obviously, posting on LinkedIn, I've not even mentioned that. Posting every day on LinkedIn to grow your personal brand is another thing. But yeah, I would say that if your business has scaled because of your network, it's probably because you've got something special about you, and therefore you are an asset to the business, and therefore you need to invest in that asset, and therefore the business should scale off the back of it. But that's all for today, I reckon. Relatively short episode for me and Jamie. We usually blab on. But yeah, hope you found that useful. And dig into your network, get into your LinkedIn, squeeze more juice out of it. Don't just go for the bottom of the funnel. Invite them onto podcasts, webinars, etc. Take a few people for lunch or a few beers. There is so much juice to be squeezed out of your network. It's a real gold mine. So good luck. And I will see you next week on the SaaS Marketing Weekly podcast.